Nurse came in trying to be kind, I believe, and said, "So we'll put this down as a COVID-19 death." I was like, "What?"
What?
And she goes, "Well, I'm sorry. I know this might not be the right time." I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. This is not a COVID-19 death. He tested negative to the virus upon admittance to the hospital. Yes?" And she goes, "Yes, he did test negative, but this is related. This is the time." I said, "No." I said, "This is a political death, not a COVID-19 death. And if you put COVID-19 down on that death certificate," I said, "he will haunt us for the rest of our lives." And I said, "It'll be a complete lie."
An Albertan father was allowed to die after the life-saving treatment he was told he needed for his heart condition was deemed non-essential due to the COVID-19 lockdown. I'm Drea Humphrey for Rebel News, and today I have a very sad story to tell you about an Alberta family who recently lost a much-loved family man. 2 months ago, during the height of the pandemic on April 16th, Jerry Dunham took to Facebook as he sat in the doctor's office. You see, he had just received the news of a decision that he had no part in, and he told his Facebook friends and followers that a nurse told him that the surgery he needed to get a defibrillator installed would not be happening. Why? Because Jerry's surgery was deemed non-essential. Now let's look at the initial thoughts Jerry had and wrote on Facebook right after what I assume was devastating news for him. So 6 months later or so, time for surgery, and boom, all non-essential surgeries postponed. I was basically told that the government is willing to risk my life to save my life. Let me say that again. My government told me they're willing to let me die, which according to them is for my own safety. Heart surgery, apparently considered non-essential. Now I know some say that's non-essential, but it's pretty dang essential to me. Now I'm told today possibly could be a year or two. Jerry was foretelling his own death. 2 months later, Jerry died at the Medicine Hat Hospital, leaving behind 2 little daughters aged 6 and 9, and a former wife, Krista Lambier, who refers to Jerry still as her soul friend. The National Post reported that almost 200,000 surgeries and other procedures, including cancer screening tests and clinical trials for experimental medicines, were shelved indefinitely as hospitals brace for a possible flood of COVID-19. That's why I sat down to interview Krista Lambier from Mount Forest, Ontario. You see, Krista wants to tell the world about how canceled surgeries and delayed treatment are costing precious lives that could have been saved. The damage this has caused Krista's family and how she believes Jerry's death in an empty southern Alberta hospital was even somewhat political is a story that should be told.
And it was maybe about 18 months ago where he started feeling kind of some chest pressure. He thought maybe it was his lungs. He went up to the local hospital. They sent him home, went back up, gave him some antibiotics, sent him home, kind of that cycle for a little bit. And then he ended up, he couldn't get up and down his stairs, and he called me and was really worried about being so short of breath. And so we went back up to the hospital. A good friend of mine, actually, I believe, took him up at the time. And they realized it was his heart. They admitted him immediately. He was there for a week. He was in another hospital in Kitchener, St. Mary's, for another couple of weeks in the ICU. Almost didn't make it. And they declared then that his heart was in need of extra support. So he hadn't worked since about 18 months ago.
What type of support was he told that he needed, and what was happening in our world? Was this, a month before the lockdown, or?
Right. So they told Ched that he'd need to be on a certain medication for X amount of time. Once they finally got medication figured out, which took a few months in itself, to get his heart rate kind of below 100 consistently, that if that medication over the course of 9 months was not improving his heart condition considerably, then next step would be a pacemaker. No doctor would sign off on him while he was just on medication. So pacemaker was his next step in order to actually be able to go back to work, to support his family, pay for his medications, he lost his house, lost his truck, lost a lot of things on those 18 months off.
Wow.
It's pretty difficult for everyone.
So was the pacemaker, it was going to be sort of a game changer for him. He was going to be able to get back to work, and the doctors thought that, how successful did the doctors think the pacemaker was going to be?
The special cardiologist out in Medicine Hat actually declared Ched's heart in a severe condition, class 2, which he then referred Ched to another more special cardiologist in Calgary through March and April, where they received zero response under non-essential surgeries under this COVID. He ended up not getting his pacemaker. And then Ched went in on April the 16th to speak with his doctor about the date for his pacemaker, which they ended up changing it to not just a regular pacemaker due to his heart echocardiogram. It was going to be, and I quote, 4 to 5% of each 100 pacemaker patients receives this special one, where instead of just working on the right side of the heart, it helps onto the left side. So they deemed that non-essential as well.
Wow.
And the doctor that day said to the receptionist that he was too busy to come out and speak with them. And Ched went public on his Facebook, on different social media platforms, where as he was sitting in the doctor's office on April the 16th, writing, okay, what am I supposed to do? Now they tell me non-essential surgery. I'm not going to leave here until I speak to the doctor, and so on. And anyways, the receptionist, after 45 minutes or another hour after that, came out and said, you're going to have to leave. He's not coming out. And so he left the doctor's office, not even being able to speak with his doctor. It was the receptionist told him that it was non-essential. I spoke to him almost every day for about 6 weeks, every other day for 6 weeks. He was extremely frustrated. And so he was just trying to raise awareness, and he openly stated, in writing form online, what am I supposed to do now? Become a statistic before anybody wakes up? He had zero follow-up from his doctor in the next 5 weeks until he had a heart attack May 30th, where he had no oxygen to his brain for over 10 minutes, which the new defibrillator pacemaker would have kicked in to at least circulate oxygen to his brain so he would have a recovery or some sort of recovery. But he remained unresponsive from May the 30th until June 7th when he passed away.
He passed from cardiac arrest, you said?
Well, yes, he did. That's what happened. However, Medicine Hat Hospital still has not released his official cause of death to our family. I was openly asked while Ched's heart was still beating. It was his mother and I standing at the foot of his bed when a nurse came in trying to be kind, I believe, and said, so we'll put this down as a COVID-19 death. I was like, what? And she goes, well, I'm sorry. I know this might not be the right time. I said, oh, no. This is not a COVID-19 death. He tested negative to the virus upon admittance to the hospital. Yes? And she goes, yes, he did test negative, but this is related. This is the time. I said, no. I said, this is a political death, not a COVID-19 death. And if you put COVID-19 down on that death certificate, I said, he will haunt us for the rest of our lives. And I said, it'll be a complete lie. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. And so anyways, I think she was trying to be nice, but it's people like her in that position that are contributing to these grossly inflated numbers, which are making people scared for their lives to wear a mask in public places when they're healthy. It's actually a slippery slope of things that's happening right now, and it makes me sick.
So tell me what it's been like after this. What has it been like? Have you had any more conversations with trying to get the death certificate, or just trying to get answers, or even apology, some sort of acknowledgement of what happened?
Right. So, and we have to, the way I look at it too, my number one priority right now is our 2 children, who are now 6 and 9 years old, who daily are in tears looking at their dad's pictures. My youngest one keeps wanting to call his cell phone because she thinks if he took it up to heaven, maybe one of these times he'll answer it. If I'm not mistaken, the hospital, Medicine Hat Hospital, actually notified us a week and a half ago. They're launching an internal investigation into Jerry's death. His mother was happy about this.
Yeah.
However, I reiterated to her that this is not to find justice for your son. This is to cover liabilities from the hospital's end. I don't want to speak up about anything at this point in time. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. But Jerry's family is also very quiet, tight-knit little family.
Yeah.
Very kind, generous, good-hearted people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in talking to media at all. His mother a little bit. However, I feel right now, if I don't say something about this, because I am aware of politics, I have been to school, I am fairly well traveled. If I don't speak out about some of this, I believe it will get swept under the rug. And it would be really sad to think that that could ever happen. So
Jerry's story is just one family that we only know about because Krista has bravely come forward to tell Jerry's story. And thankfully, there's few news media such as Calgary Herald, the Post-Millennial, Rebel, that are not afraid to let her tell that story. We may never know the full extent of deaths from treatment delays, cancers that could have been survived, and people who took their own lives out of the lockdown despair. Perhaps by sharing these types of stories, politicians and health advisors may rethink their decisions and consider the consequences for all the lives at risk. For Rebel News, I'm Drea Humphrey. While mainstream media wants to tell us that the lockdown saves lives, we know it's cost lives too. There is another side to the lockdown story that isn't being told. If you want to help us get these types of stories out, please go to helprebelnews.com. We appreciate your support.